everybody. It's Servet Hassan, Sunday night. The name of the show is Intuitive Inc. Welcome. I've got a really great show for you tonight. His name is Clayton John Ainger. He's written a book. It's called The Ego's Code. Understand the truth behind your negativity. Now, who doesn't need to do that? Because we all have some negativity in us. Clayton sounds like a really interesting person. He's an entrepreneur, a business owner, a health nut, a shaman, a psychic medium, and a speaker, and obviously an author. So let's welcome Clayton John Ainger. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Saved. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction.
You're welcome.
I think that's one of the best intros I've ever had.
I think, you know what I loved was that you threw in health nut. And I was like, that's good. Like right in the middle, I was like, well, that's important. Let's put that in there. That's good. I liked that. You know, along with being a shaman and everything else. So, okay, so let's start at the beginning. I love that you've written The Ego's Code, understand the truth behind your negativity, because this is what blocks 99% of my clients and the people I work with in my workshops, etc., as I'm sure you do. It is this underlying, even if it's a very fine little river of misery somewhere in the back of their brain, It can stop everything. You know, that it's key. So I'm glad we're going to talk about that. So let's start at how did you come upon, how did you start out how did you get into being a shaman, a psychic medium, a writer? Where did this all begin? It's kind of I read your book, so I know you started out as a tax consultant. So
I did.
How did that?
I did.
Yeah. How'd that happen?
Oh, wow. Okay. So let's start at the very beginning. So at the age of 7, I became consciously aware of spirit and spirits all around me, and if I'm really honest, completely freaked me out. And I remember there was a little Norman boy that used to sit outside my bedroom and watch over me. And I also remember that lots of spirits would come, and I used to see lots of vivid colours, and it used to, as I said, freak me out. So I remember making a decision at the age of 7 and closing it all down. And it didn't come back until many, many, many years later, because then I embarked upon what I would call an egoic earth plane journey, which is where my journey into accountancy began. And, you know, I trained as an accountant and as a tax consultant, because I was good with numbers. I was, very good left brain logical thinker, but I wasn't particularly good at it, didn't fulfill me in any way, and my motives and my intentions behind doing it were not true to who I am. In the fact it was all about making money. It was, it wasn't trying to be successful. And I remember actually very, very recently, just in terms of my own evolution along this journey, I part of the work that I do is I do work with big corporate. And I remember being in a room very recently, running a training event, and met this guy I haven't seen for a long time. I said, hey, how you doing? And I said, I hear you're doing really well. And he said, yeah, I'm doing really well. It's all about the money, and he said, you understand all that, Clayton. He said, that's the reason why you get out of bed in the morning. I thought, actually, no, it's not. Maybe 20, 30 years ago it was, but it's no longer anymore. And then I remember that everything came to a pinnacle point in my life. So my daughter is 14 in November, so this was about 12 years ago. And in this particular point in my life, I left my first marriage, because I was deeply unhappy. I piled on so much weight. I was nearly, 252 pounds. I piled up loads of debt, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. I walked away from accountancy, because it just didn't fulfill me, and I denied all of my spiritual gifts. And it was a very interesting year that year, because everything seemed to come crumbling down around me. And then it was about 12, 18 months later and I know the date, it was the 17th of December, 2005, and I'm driving down the motorway or the highway, and I'm having a bit of a rant at the universe. And I say, I demand my twin flame soulmate. I demand, love come into my life. And then all of a sudden my phone rang. And cutting a long story short, the man who rang me was inviting me to Colorado to go to his speaker boot camp. And the interesting thing is that he rang me on a telephone number that no longer existed and managed to get through to my current phone. And it was like the divine had conspired to connect us up. But at the time I had no job, no money, no home. And I just said, yes, I'll be there within 10 days. I had a job, I had money, I had enough money to get on the plane, I had enough money to go to the event, and I landed in Colorado and walked into this venue, and there's a group of people who I didn't know, and we had this introduction into the speakers boot camp, and there, the very first person on stage was my wife. Mm-hmm. And that was big turning point in my life, because I had been reading privately, to people, and Lindsay really encouraged me to go out into the world, and she always raises me up and lifts me up and takes great care of me. And it was incredible, because it was about a few months just after that I woke up one morning and knew I had to go to Stonehenge. And Lindsay was in the US working, and I went to Stonehenge. It was throwing it down with rain, and it's not like you can, it's not like today. If you go to Stonehenge today, because I live about an hour away, you can't actually get to the stones unless you go to a VIP session. Hmm. And I remember sitting in the rain by the stones, and this message just coming to me, the ego teacher. And it was in that moment that a lot of things just started to make sense. And then after that, the message that came through is that there's a misunderstanding of negativity. There's this misunderstanding of what the ego is all about and where the ego comes from. And then literally days and weeks and months that follow, I just had all of these downloads from the divine around what is now called the ego's code. And it's been a mystical, it's been a mystical, magical, incredible journey. And if I look back over, the last, 12 years, we now run a very successful consulting business. I am a health nut, as you said. I embrace my spiritual gifts. I read psychically for people all over the world. I've got an award-winning book. I run events all over the world. I'm speaking all over the world. And I look back and say, my old sort of personality and the negativity was a big contributor to that, because what came through as part of the journey was whenever we experience pain, whenever we experience hardship, whenever we experience challenges in life, or, and our negativity that sometimes, can consume us so much that we feel like we're drowning. There is a reason to it. There's a pattern to it. And that pattern is, I've been able to unravel the patterns that are there. It's called the ego's code. And my book is all about how you go about deciphering your own code so you can live an ego-free life, so you can manage your negativity and live a negativity-free life, and, and understand how you can use that negativity rather than something keep you stuck in the past as a force for good in your life. And it's, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to share with you, all about it.
Well, Rumi said, I'm a big fan of Rumi, but, and I'm just going to paraphrase, but he said that, one of his lines of his poems is that, the wound is where the light can come in. So we all need, we're all gonna, my feeling is, and the gist of your book from what I got, you feel the same way, is that we're all here to learn. We're all souls that come to earth to evolve, to expand our consciousness and to become bigger and better than we were before, hopefully. That's the whole gist of it. So let's talk about because one of the things I liked about your book, because I've read a million, and everybody said something differently a different way. One of the things that I like about your book is that you're not putting down negativity. You're actually saying that, there's a good reason for it, and negativity is actually not negative, right?
That's absolutely right. Mm-hmm. So spiritually, negativity is not negative. And often that freaks people out. They say, what do you mean? Because when I run my events, or I'm stood in front of an audience and I put my hand up and I'll say to people, okay, by show of hands, tell me how many people in the room feel that, negativity is bad. Mm-hmm. And literally about 90% of every audience put their hand up. And I say to my audience, I say, look, here's the thing. Negativity is a message from you to you that something's not quite right or how you think it should be. So if it's there to serve you, mm-hmm. how can it be a bad thing? And ultimately what's happening is we're also making ourselves wrong and bad at the same time, which mm-hmm. ultimately heightens the challenges and the problems and escalates the feelings and emotions that go on, and we can end up then in that spiral. And so negativity is there for us to learn from. And the reason I say spiritually negativity is not negative is because every soul is on a journey. Mm-hmm. And each soul has got 2, 3, 4 core things that they need to learn. And what happens is where those learnings come from is that we experience trauma. And when we experience trauma in our life, whether it be in our current lifetime, whether it be in past lifetimes, or, whether it be in multiverses in which we live in and working, what happens is it creates a tear in the soul. And part of the soul leaves and goes to a place in consciousness where it feels safe. Mm-hmm. And people often say to me, Clayton, I feel like something is missing. And I say, that's because something is missing in your life. Part of your soul is not there, but it's part of you and it wants to return. So how do you get it to return? So here's the thing. When you experience a trauma, it creates this tear in the soul and part of the soul leaves. And in that hole or that void in the soul, that's where all the negativity associated with that trauma actually goes. And then it gets sealed off. And then what happens at the point of incarnation when we're born onto this plane and we start our soul's journey, the higher self, which is our true self that is omnipresent and everywhere, actually splits in two. And the reason I know this is a friend of mine called Paul Cobley. He passed away, and I was visiting him in the Chapel of Rest. And, having the gifts that I have, Paul came to me and he said, I have a question for you. What happens when we die? What happens to the soul when we die? And I said, it rises up and goes home. And he said, yeah. He said, so what happened to the ego? And I said, like most people, it dies. And he said, no, it doesn't. It rises up and it goes home. I said, what? And then we were having this conversation, and then more and more information came through in meditations. Well, actually what happens is this. So the higher self, which is our true self, splits in two. And so keeping the numbers clean, 99% of it, of a higher self remains the higher self. It's omnipresent. It's everywhere. It communicates through the heart. It is literally, the most incredible part of who we are. And then the other 1% becomes the divine ego self. And so the higher self and the ego self are actually one and the same thing. And what happens is this, is that the ego gets programmed with all the negativity associated with our trauma and where those traumas come from. And then it acts like a beacon, and it sends out a signal into, whether you call it the quantum field or you call it the universe or anything like that. So it sends out this signal and attracts to you situations and circumstances and people so that you can learn. And the reason we want to learn from it is so that we can clear out the trauma. And so every time we learn from our negativity, every time we learn from, our traumas of the past, what actually happens is we clear out the void, and all that negativity leaves and transmutes into an energy that serves us. And then the soul is then free to return. But the challenge that we've had in society is that we've been conditioned to ignore our negativity. We've been conditioned to sweep it under the carpet. We've been conditioned to say that self-talk and expressing our thoughts and our feelings is a bad thing. Well, actually, it's not, which is why my work sort of covers three areas: spirituality, psychology, and also, neuroscience, because we need to understand the impact and the integration of all three and how it impacts upon us day to day.
Right.
So my advice to people who are listening is don't ignore your negativity. Pay attention to it. So I love that quote from Rumi.
Well, yeah. And also, like Shakespeare said too, and there is nothing good or bad, just what you make of it. And I'm paraphrasing again. It's like it's like it's how we are reacting to what's going on to us as well, as opposed to just knowing it's a lesson and we can heal this and move forward. Because like you say in your book, and I know this too, it's like you can't change your life from the consciousness of your life, because like Einstein said, you can't change a problem from the same condition you're in the problem. You have to rise beyond that. So it's like we have to be different within us to move. Otherwise, remember The Secret, Clayton? Remember that movie?
Yes, I do.
It was 10 years ago, believe it or not, and I have people watching that like 1,000 times, and then they would call me and say, why hasn't anything changed? And I was like, well, that's not exactly how, yes, your thoughts create your reality, but you can make vision boards and do affirmations and, dance on your head, whatever you want to do till you're blue in the face. But if you don't change internally and heal that pattern, as you're calling it, you will just keep repeating it. The universe is very, very patient. It'll just give you that lesson again.
You're absolutely right. And there is no in the universe.
No.
So
yeah.
And I love the fact that you said it's very patient. It is very patient.
Very.
I would often, I know when I first met Lindsay, my wife, I would say to her, divine timing, divine order.
Yeah.
And it used to drive her bonkers, and now she's actually got it, and we work it that way, but also we know how to accelerate it, because as we change ourselves, our energy changes, and as our energy changes, then so our life will change.
Right.
So, and part of the challenge for people is that if you look out at your life and there's something in your life that you're not happy with, if you ignore it, then it will remain, or it will escalate, or it will continue. But what we need to do is we need to take ownership of the challenges and the problems that we have in our life. And when we own it and we acknowledge it, that's actually when things start to change, in a really, really big way. And so as we change ourselves and as we change our energy, and so our life will change, and you will get feedback immediately.
Right.
But also at the same time, I love what you mentioned about The Secret, is because people give themselves such a hard time. They beat themselves up a lot, and I said, the challenge with you beating yourself up is you are, making the problem even worse. You're actually not learning anything. You accelerate, you're not paying attention to actually what's going on in your world or in your life.
Right.
And this is why positive thinking alone doesn't work. Because I can sit there with my vision board and say, wow, right, I can visualize, say, having more money, or having, a romantic relationship, or having a great career, or whatever that thing is that I want to create. But if the thoughts that I'm sending out are not aligned to my own feelings, my true feelings, then there's a mismatch. So what tends to happen is when people want to have more money, they're lacking money in their life. And so the thought that actually goes out into the quantum field, or the divine spiritual system, or the universe, whatever word you want to call it, is lack. And so you'll attract lack back to you.
Right.
So you have to change your energy associated to what it is you wish to create in your life. And when you do that, that's when the magic happens.
Right, exactly. Because you can't, or you could, like, let's say you do the vision board. You put up a picture of a black 750 IL BMW, and it's on your fridge, and you look at that, and you do that every day, and you affirm it, and you affirm. If you're not aligned, you may even get the car. The problem is you won't keep the car.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're not matched up, like you said, internally and consciously, you know, that's why I'm a big fan of epigenetics and also, you know, Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who, you know, neurons that fire together, wire together, you know, the biology of belief, all of those things where you can actually, scientists have proven that our brain is not hardwired. It's plastic. And we can change. Right. We can change, and we have to change neurologically or nothing externally. Like one thing I know for certain, and I don't know a whole lot for certain, but one thing I do know is that if you want to change, if you want your world to change, you have to change.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Completely.
Right.
You know, and I know Joe's work very, very well, and you know, he's actually a friend of ours, and so, you know, we go to his events regularly, and we're huge fan of his, and also Bruce Lipton from Biology of Belief. There's some great work that these teachers and masters are taking into the world.
Right.
But the consistent message there, and I absolutely agree with you, is that if you want your world to change, you have to change. But for you to change, you have to, for me, there's like a 3-step process. The first process is awareness. You have to start to be more aware of what is actually going on, not only outside of you, but importantly within you, and know that your outside world is a reflection of what's going on within your inner world.
Right.
And the challenge is that, you know, when we actually experience negativity and the challenges in life, we're actually reliving the past in the here and the now. We're actually being triggered back to the past. So you're not actually present. And if you're not present in the here and the now, you can't actually create what it is you want to create, because you're actually in the past recreating more of the past.
Right.
What's actually happening from a neurological perspective as well is that, you know, when you're caught up in the negativity, and I call it the ego's playground, you're actually, from a neuroscience perspective, in high beta brainwaves. And when you're in high beta, it's not possible to create. So the awareness, when you have the awareness, what that does is it actually starts to change the neurology in the body. When you start to breathe and relax into that and just then start to acknowledge it, the awareness creates presence, which actually brings you back into the now. And when you come back into the now, into the here and the now, and you're present, the important thing to do is to acknowledge what's going on. And as you acknowledge it, get grateful for it. Because when you can express gratitude for being angry or frustrated, that's when the energy really starts to change. And then you act for your highest good. And what I mean by that is this: if someone doesn't like what you say or what you do, that's their stuff. And you allow them to have their journey. I say to my daughter, I say, look, you know, we've got our garden in the back, and your friends have got their garden. If you want to invite them over to play, if they want to come over, that's fine. If you want to go over there and they invite you over, that's fine as well. But, you know, you can't force anybody to come over, and it's the same here. When you're acting for your highest good, you're creating a space for somebody to come into your own garden. And if they don't want to come, they're just not ready to come. But what you don't do is lower your vibration or compromise yourself, you know, by being somebody who you're not, or doing something out of obligation because you think you should, which is very different to doing something out of service.
Right.
So the awareness creates presence, which brings you back into the here and the now. Then you acknowledge, you express gratitude, then you act and behave for your highest good.
Right. Well, I'm really glad you're doing that for your daughter, because it's important. I end my show with be you to the full, because that's what's truly beautiful. And my goal in life, other than taking the mysticism out of the mystical, is to really teach people to be them true selves. Because when you are your true self, everything just naturally flows. You know, you got to be true to yourself, to who you really are. And it's important especially when they're teenagers, you know. My daughter is now 28, and she just graduated from the University of Pennsylvania Law School last year. So she's,
wow.
But it's because there was such a strong, I come from a third world country where my name in English means treasure because in 1958 they were burying baby girls alive because they didn't need them. And so my mom already had 3 boys and my dad wanted a girl. So, and funny thing is my birthday every 7 years is on Father's Day. So there are no accidents in life. But because of that, because of my, background and everything else, I taught my daughter to be strong and stand, which bit me in the face a couple of times, trust me. But that really, it really is important that they know that you don't lower your vibrational self for anybody else. Just be you and keep being you and keep doing that. So I like that. But, going back to awareness, that's kind of like becoming aware of the observer, your higher self. And I find the only way I can get myself to do that and other people to do that is through meditation. Do you agree?
I think meditation, I meditate every day, and I think what meditation does is it helps you to master the skills of observation. But what you really need to be able to do is to master the feelings of gratitude and observation whilst you're awake. So what I mean by that is this. So I have been observing myself recently in terms of chemistry, and this is a new route that my guides seem to be taking me in relation to negativity. And I found myself very recently getting a bit agitated and a bit angry and a bit fearful at the same time. And I thought, okay, this is a little bit out of the ordinary, a little bit new. What's going on here? And so I looked at my diet, which was interesting, and I realized that there was only one thing that I had changed, and that what I had changed was I had a certain brand of chocolate. And that certain brand of chocolate, as I spent time in observation, was actually changing the chemistry within my body. Now, I put the chocolate in. I just need to notice what's happening with the chemistry in my body. So I was doing that from an awaking state of observation. And as I go through my life, I have the most amazing, amazing therapist. I call him Gandalf. And I see, honestly, God, thou shalt not pass. And I see him each week, and we'll sit and we'll chat and we will talk about it, observation and awareness. And because we do need to be able to do that in our waking state, because we are living our life. And part of the challenge is science is now proven that we are spending about 95% of our time unconscious. So we're missing out on so much, one of living in the present, but also being able to make the changes. And when we have that trigger or that trip where we go back to the past because of the negativity, if we're not awake and we're not in awareness, then we're going to miss the opportunity to learn and to drive that change.
Right.
And I use my meditation practice to adjust my energy as well. So, for example, we run a consultancy, day to day, and sometimes I'll be noticing and observing my energy around the contracts that we win. And then I'll notice that, well, why is that particular contract taking so much time? And we actually had, there were a number of invoices, just as an example, that our client had lost, for want of a better description. And it amounted to a lot of money. And I had spent some time connecting with them, and they said, oh, it's going to be another 2 months. And I said, well, we can't be another 2 months because we got a teams, we got to pay. Anyway, so Lindsay and I, we connected in on it, and we looked at our energy, and I looked at my energy, and I meditated around it. And when I meditate around it, I love either Dr. Joe's meditations, my own meditations, or Tom Kenyon. Absolutely awesome. And when I do those meditations, it changed my energy. And then as it changed my energy, I literally came out of the meditation. I had an email from this particular client saying, all your invoices will be paid at the end of the month, which was actually 2 months early.
Right.
But I had to be aware of what was going on and observing my own body and my own life
Right.
And then I used the meditation to change my energy, because I needed to
right.
go a little bit deeper than I could in the waking world.
Well, I agree. I think that if you just meditate and you get up the same person you were when you sat down or when you're in bed or whatever, you didn't really do it. It's just relaxing then. It's not really changing anything. You know, to me, like, I can't not meditate. If I don't meditate, I'm a wreck by noon, you know. I'm bumping into the walls, and because it's just such a part of me, you know. I do it before I put my feet on the floor. You know, I wake up and I meditate. So, and it sets the day. It sets the day, and it reminds me to, when something's not going my way or something's off, to just take a deep breath and pause, hit the pause button and say, wait, you know, what's really going on here, you know?
And I think, coming back to the being true to you piece as well, that I would link in with that, is it takes courage to do that. It takes courage in that moment to say, you know what, I'm feeling a little bit out of sorts. I'm feeling a little bit out of balance. You know what, actually I need to go and take care of myself. And sometimes, you know, day to day, when we're in a busy meetings, or we're working with clients, or if somebody's, you know, has a job, or they're taking care of their children, it's not always easy to be able to do that. But just having that awareness in that moment, say, you know what, at some point when I have a window, I need to go and take care of myself. It doesn't need to be an hour. It doesn't even need to be 30 minutes. It can be 10, 15 minutes. Just noticing, focusing on change in the energy. Like Dr. Joe talks about in his work, don't get up until you feel different.
Right, exactly. That's what I was saying. If you get up and you feel the same way, then not much happened, you know, other than you probably relaxed a little bit, or maybe you fell asleep. But you have to change the way your neurons are firing, the way that your brain is processing, and it takes practice. It's almost like, you know, the way I describe it in my workshops is that, you know, if you learn to drive a stick shift, a car that, you know, remember in the beginning, and you're like, okay, you do this with this pedal and that pedal, and you shift to the first and second, and it's a lot of effort. But after a couple of months, you know, a month or two, you're no longer thinking about that. It's moved from your frontal lobe. It's gone into your cerebellum. It's part of you. And then suddenly you're driving your car, and you're looking out the window, and you're putting your lipstick on, and you're, you know, smacking the kid in the back seat or whatever, you know, and you're no longer thinking through that. It's just and when that becomes a part of you, that's when you change. That's when the change occurs, because it's
completely. And I absolutely agree. And there's a story I regularly share around feedback. And there is a beautiful friend of ours who's an equestrian, and Diane Hunter, her name is, and she's an incredible lady. And when Lindsay and I were in Switzerland at a friend's event, and Diane said, "Hey, would you like to come and play with the horses?" Yeah, okay, that would be awesome. And we actually, you know, she had never met these horses before. They were completely new and raw to her. And she was in this circle, in this ring, and these horses were dancing for her. You know, and it was just incredible. And she said, okay, now it's your turn. And I checked in with myself, you know, I feel really good. Let's go in. And horses don't have an ego. They are very much connected to spirit, and, you know, they are able to read and see energy. They are probably one of the most divine being creatures on the planet. And I got into the ring, and the horse wouldn't come to me. And it was really interesting. And no matter as I moved towards it, like trying to force the horse to come to me, the horse moved further away. And it was a deep piece of learning for me, because Diane then said to me in that moment, she said, what fear are you feeling right now? I said, I'm not feeling any fear. She said, no, just close your eyes, just go inward, you know, do the work that you do, just go inward and sense what's going on. And I went inward, and I thought, and it was just like a revelation. In that moment, I realized I was feeling fear, and it was like 12 months earlier, our daughter Isabel had fallen off a horse, got trapped under a horse, and the horse had trampled on her and broken her leg. And I was reliving this, you know, from an unconscious perspective. I thought, wow. And then I thought, okay, so I just went through a little process with myself, the awareness, which I talked about, brought myself back into the now, acknowledged it, got to a place of gratitude with it, and then the horse came to me. But I needed to own it. I needed to be aware of what was actually taking place in my life. And it was a real gift to me in terms of, because we are receiving feedback from all around us and inside us. But we get so caught up in life that we miss the opportunity to receive the feedback, to make the changes that we want to make. And then we wonder why our life remains the same.
Well, right. And you, in your book, apply that same philosophy to everything. Like just with the horse. I mean, it works with money. It works with your career. It works with a relationship. It works with everything, because at some point you have to stop and ask yourself what fear you're fighting that is keeping that away or moving. The horse is moving back. The money's moving back. It's not there, or the relationship won't come. It's the same theory. It's applicable to everything, I believe. And that's in your book. That's very much part of it.
It is. It is applicable to everything. And, and if listeners can just pause, and if they take nothing away from this call, they just take it away the following: that you are creating your life. If you can own your creation, good and bad, okay?
Right.
We are, quantum physics is now proving that we are experiencing wholeness 7.8 times per second. It's not 7.8 times per minute, 7.8 times per second, which means that we are always in creation. So we are either creating from negativity because we're going unconscious 95% of the time, or we're creating from a place of consciousness and owning what is going on. And I say to people in my talks, I say, look, if you think about the energy it takes to put a rocket into space, if I said to you, you have the same energy that's trapped in your lower 3 energy centers, and all you have to do is just awaken that energy and acknowledge, the negativity and give it a voice and pay attention to it like it's a 2-year-old having a tantrum, then that energy will then start to move up and out, and you can actually use it as a force for good in your life rather than continuing to live in the past every day.
Right.
And it just takes a little bit of practice, as you were saying about driving the car.
Right.
Repetition.
Do it again. Yeah, exactly. We're running out of time, so I want to tell people, the name of the book is The Ego's Code, and where can they get it, Clayton?
Okay. So the Ego's Code is available in 3 formats. They can actually get it. People can get it in a paperback from Amazon.com. You can now get it as an audio book from Audible.com. If people are in Europe or in the UK, then they can get it from the .co.uk versions as well. And it's also available on Kindle. What goes with the book, which I highly recommend for people who want to really release the negativity and start living more of a negativity-free life, is that there is a very powerful meditation called the Ego's Code meditation, which is also available from Amazon and iTunes as well. So they go really, really well together. So thank you for asking.
Oh, good. Okay, great. And your last name, it's Clayton John, and the last name is Ainger. And do you have a website? Right. Do you have a website people can go to? Can they?
Yes, please do. Yeah, my website is claytonjohnainger.com.
Okay.
Please join our community. There's from the 1st of October, 1st of November, 1st of December, there's going to be a new free meditation, which I'm going to be releasing for people. In the 1st of January, there'll be a new meditation which will be available to buy, which is going to be called the Magic Shop of Creation, which helps people to get past all of their blocks and create the things they want to create in their life. I'm also on Twitter. So it'd be amazing if people could follow me. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I send out tips and tricks and hints and different things every day, for people to live a better life and fall in love with themselves and fall in love with their life. It's a joy.
Right.
Absolutely adore it.
Absolutely. And it's ClaytonJohnAinger.com. Now you are also a medium, correct? I mean, can people...
I am a psychic medium,
Are you still doing that? Are you still available to people if they want to connect
completely.
with you? Good.
So if people want to have a private reading with me, each reading is an hour, they just go to my website. In the top right-hand corner of my website, it says Clayton's Diary. And, people can just go in and they can book a time slot with me for an hour. And then they'll have that reading with me privately, one-to-one.
Right, great. I love that you're still doing that. And because I know people keep getting on me because I don't have as much time as I used to be able to do that one-on-one with clients. And they get mad. But I try. I do try. Anyway, that's awesome that they can find you at ClaytonJohnAinger.com. And I love the book. I do want to ask you one thing really, because we are slowly running out of time here. It just goes so fast, an hour. One thing I wanted you to do was to define ego for people, because the word ego itself it has a bad rap. And you know, there's a school of spiritualists out there that think we don't need the ego. And then there's a whole, Wayne Dyer said ego is edging God out, things like that. But I think we need an ego personally. But how would you define it?
I define the ego in my book, interestingly, what Wayne Dyer says, as expanding your greatness out. Mm-hmm. And I always look at say tennis players. So if you take your two most favorite tennis players, and so if I go back, in terms of thinking about Wimbledon many years ago, there was Steffi Graf always used to play tennis against Martina Navratilova. Uh-huh. And what happened is that on the court, they were, I want to say fierce, people call it an ego enemy. They were just rivals. But they helped each other to be great. Mm-hmm. And off the court, they were just amazing friends. And it's like that, the ego will help you to be great. It will, sometimes it feels like it's a rival. It's not. Just give it a voice. It communicates through negativity. Allow it to rise up. And if you think about that, the ego is also, it's one and the same as the divine higher self. The ego is born from the higher self. And all it wants to do is to get home. So it will put you in situations and circumstances for you to learn. And that's all that it's doing. And so my invitation to people is pay attention to the negativity. Give it a voice. Allow the negativity to tell you what is going on in your life. And even in your body, your negativity will communicate in your body. Mm-hmm. So, for example, I have a pain sometimes in my lower left-hand part of my back. And that's a message that comes to me through myself, through my egoic self, that says, Clayton, there's something you need to be paying attention to, either around money, around contracts, around our consultancy business, anything to do with that. And I have other aches and pains that would come up in my body as well. Mm-hmm. So, the ego is mysterious. It is, but it's part of you. It's a gift. Right. So pay attention to it.
Yeah, I think it's necessary. It's part of our personality. But I also think that it's meant to be a slave to the spirit, not the master. So if you can get control, then it does help you. And that's why, I read an article the other day where there are doctors in Japan who are treating cancer patients, terminal cancer patients, by teaching them how to love the cancer. I found it phenomenal. Fascinating. I found it fascinating because some of these people who are terminal are no longer terminal. Instead of fighting it, they're just saying, I love it. It's teaching me something. It's given me a gift, maybe of awakening or whatever, and owning it. You said that. That's an interesting way to put it. When you own something, it becomes a part of you, and you're no longer fighting it or judging it, which is even worse. And then you can heal it.
Sorry, go on.
No, you can heal it then. Yes.
You can heal it. And, and the second that you start fighting with yourself, here's the interesting thing, is you just triggered yourself to go back to the past. So you're actually not learning anything.
Right.
And it's about, and I love the fact that they're doing this, like all the work that Joe does around helping people to heal themselves. Uh-huh. Or, through meditation, that is about surrendering to yourself.
Right.
That's about, surrendering and understanding, what is actually going on from a chemical perspective in your body. In my book, I talk about the spiral effect. You will get clues from the divine and your ego self around the challenges in your life. And if you're not paying attention, the closer you get to the center of the spiral, the worse it gets. And then if you don't even then pay attention, then you can fall through the spiral, and that's when the dis-ease starts to impact upon the body.
Right.
You know, we have friends in our life who, one lady in particular has healed herself of stage 4 cancer. You know, and the doctors have no idea how she did it. You know, but you can, you know, as I said, Joe's a friend and he's a great guy. You can go to his YouTube channel and actually see miracle after miracle after miracle of people who are doing meditations and healing themselves because they're surrendering.
Right. Well, he did it for himself too. Dr. Joe Dispenza had a bike accident in his 20s where his spine was completely shattered, and he healed that himself, rather than having a foot-long rod or something put through his spine. But yeah, there's a lot of good work out there, and that's all part of it. And people do heal. You know, people can heal themselves, and it's also it's even harder to heal when you can't put your finger on it, because I know that in your book you said that part of your work is you help people and you speak about why people don't do better when they know better. You know, that's harder to heal than a physical ailment, you know, sometimes, because it's like they know they want to do better in life and they just can't quite get that next level of consciousness that's going to take them there, which is what I believe you're helping them do.
Yeah, and the thing is people, you know, they get frustrated around that. And what I talk about interestingly about surrendering to the frustration, because often the frustration is getting in the way of the clarity around purpose or the next stage, or, you know, whatever it is that they want to go, wherever they want to go in their life. And often when I'm working with people, so I offer, you know, again, sort of mentoring for certain people and coaching for certain people as well. And we will always begin with a reading. Right. Because I want to know what's actually going on for them, not only energetically, but also spiritually. You know, because things will come through to me that they're not seeing. And every single time I'll say to people, okay, so this is what's going on. And they say, God, how did you know that?
Right. You know, you can feel it. You can feel into their blocks or whatever's holding them back. And a lot of times these are things that people don't want to admit to themselves, you know, or can't really put their finger on, because it's like you said earlier, it's like a trauma occurred and then it leaves a void. And especially if it happens in your childhood, you spend a lot of time trying to cover that up instead of understanding it, you know? So it's an interesting process, and it all has to do with changing our consciousness, I think.
It is all about changing consciousness. If I think about my own childhood, you know, one of the things that Lindsay and I are regularly encouraging Isabel to do, our daughter, is to speak up. Is to share her voice, to share her feelings, because I didn't do that, you know. And I would probably say it wasn't until my 40s when I really started to truly share what was going on, you know. And so, you know, people, you know, sometimes it can take a while, but you know, it's by educating and encouraging the younger generations today to actually say and share what's really going on for them, you know, without the fear of consequence or anything like that. And our daughter said to me the other day, it was a real gift, and it's always a gift when a child says, you know, sees you as a friend of theirs, and she said, you know, Dad, all of my friends keep asking me why I have such a good relationship with you. And I said, why do you think that is? And she said, because you see me as an equal. And I said to her, and I said to her, I said, it was always my intention to communicate with you soul to soul. I said, who am I to say that you're a young soul and old soul? I said, communicate with you soul to soul. But I will guide you. I'm here as a guide, as a mentor, as someone to support you on your journey throughout your entire life. And she really valued that, because a lot of her friends, she says their parents teach like it's almost employer-employee. Right. But the only reason I do that is because of the level of conscious awareness that I have around my own consciousness and the impact that things have had in me as a child as I've been growing up.
Right, I know. I did that with my daughter too. Again, we had a big row once, and she's like, "Well, what did you expect, Mother? You taught me to speak my mind," and she just let me have it. And we were just going at it. And finally, I just said to her, I said, "Well, you picked me. You picked me for your mother." And she said, "Yeah, I must have been not thinking."
I so love that story because people will say to me, "Well, I didn't choose my parents," and then I will throw back to them and say, "Well, actually, you did."
Yeah, you did. As I told her, I was like, "Yeah, I didn't do it consciously, but because I came from where I came from, and I just taught her to speak up, and boy, did she, So, yeah, I encourage that with everybody. I really am all about getting people to love themselves. Because life flows. And you talk about that in your book, too. We're running out of time, so we can't discuss it now. But you talk about getting in the flow. Because when you are in the flow, that's when everything comes effortlessly. And that's how you know it's right. It's not meant to be a struggle. It's meant to be easy. Right.
It's not. And the thing is, when we listen to ourselves and we act in accordance with our own intuition and the flow, and it feels good.
Yeah,
it feels good. That's my own trigger. As I know that I'm in flow because it feels good, and every single time I act in accordance with my flow and my intuition, it always works out every single time.
Wow.
But it's the times when I don't that it comes back and bites me in the backside.
Right, exactly. That's how you know it's right. And it's supposed to feel good. We're supposed to be here having, we have lessons to learn, but we can learn them through fear and negativity and hatred, or we can learn them through love. We can embrace them and sort of move forward and not carry the past with us.
Completely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that you finished with that, but that is amazing.
I love the book. I encourage everybody to go out and get it. It's Clayton John Ainger. The name of the book is The Ego's Code, and the subtitle is Understand the Truth Behind Your Negativity, because when you do, then you can get rid of it and move on. And it's absolutely well done. It's put in a simple way that I think anyone can understand, which makes it less complicated. It's a very well outlined, well explained book. So I hope people go out and get it.
Thank you for saying that, Sylvia, because that was actually my intention when I sat down to write it. I wanted to write it so anybody could pick it up and read it.
Right, you did.
And help themselves. So thank you for sharing that.
You accomplished that. So one last time, the name of your website, Clayton John Ainger. It's Clayton, John like John, John. Ainger is AINGER.com. People can go there and find out all about you. I've had a fabulous time. Thank you so much. I could do this for another 2, 3, 4, 6 hours.
I like it. Thank you, Sylvia. I really do appreciate you having me on your show. I've had a wonderful, wonderful time.
Good. You're welcome.
So thank you.
And we'll have to have you back when you write your next book. Okay?
Oh, I would love that.
All right. I know there's a next book. I do.
Oh, yeah. It's already in creation.
I knew it. Okay. We'll talk to you later. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Take care.
Have a great day.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye. Well, that was a fabulous interview with Clayton John Ainger. Like I said, the name of the book is The Ego's Code. You can get it on Amazon.com or at ClaytonJohnAinger.com. The name of my website is ServetHassan.com, ServetHassan.com. I am going to start blogging again and doing workshops and all of that. I'll be out and about again. I'm just taking a pause in the action for very good reasons, so I can come back bigger and stronger and brighter and better. And in the meantime, all of this was good information, and all of it is revolving around what I try to teach, which is be you to the full, because that's what's really, truly beautiful. Embrace yourself with all of your negativities, with all of your faults, with all of your little idiosyncrasies. You are who you are, and you're beautiful, no matter what anybody says. So just embrace it, be you to the full, and I will get you up to speed with more information about me very soon, probably after the first of the year. But in the meantime, I will continue to do my show, Intuitive Inc., Sunday nights. Next Sunday I'll be live, so join me then. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.